The losses kept coming long after you thought you had already given enough. One season took your confidence. Another took a relationship you believed would last forever. Then came the opportunities that disappeared, the friendships that slowly faded, the dreams that seemed to move farther away the harder you worked for them. There were moments when it felt as if life was constantly asking you to release something precious, while giving very little in return. For many people who carry a deep sense of purpose, this pattern of loss becomes one of the most confusing parts of their journey. They look around and see others moving through life with fewer disruptions, fewer painful goodbyes, and fewer seasons of unexpected change. Meanwhile, they find themselves standing in the middle of another ending, trying to understand why so much has been taken from them. If this has been your experience, there is something important you need to remember today. Your value has never been determined by what left your life. The departure of people, opportunities, or seasons did not diminish the worth that already existed within you. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from believing that every loss is evidence that you are unwanted, forgotten, or overlooked. Yet many of the strongest people you will ever meet have walked through long periods where life seemed to strip away everything familiar. They carried burdens that few people ever noticed. They cried tears that nobody witnessed. They faced disappointments in silence while still showing kindness to everyone around them. What made them remarkable was not the absence of loss. It was their decision to keep moving forward despite it. Perhaps you know exactly what that feels like. You learned how to smile while carrying grief. You learned how to encourage others while your own heart was exhausted. You learned how to continue showing up even when nobody seemed to understand what you were carrying. There is a quiet strength in that kind of endurance. The world often celebrates visible victories, but some of the greatest victories happen in silence. Some victories happen when a person chooses hope after another disappointment. Some victories happen when someone continues believing in goodness after being hurt repeatedly. Some victories happen when faith survives a season that should have destroyed it. Those victories may never receive applause, but they matter more than most people realize. One reason constant loss feels so painful is because it forces a person to confront what truly remains. When everything is stable, it is easy to build an identity around external things. It is easy to believe your security comes from relationships, achievements, recognition, or circumstances. But when losses occur, those foundations begin to shake. Suddenly, you are faced with a difficult reality. You must discover who you are without the things you once depended on. This process is uncomfortable. It can feel lonely. It can feel unfair. Yet it often reveals a deeper strength that was hidden beneath the surface. The truth is that many people never discover how resilient they are because they never have to. Their lives never require them to develop that level of endurance. But you have been tested in ways that forced you to grow. You have faced situations that demanded courage you did not know you possessed. You survived moments that looked impossible while you were living through them. The fact that you are still standing says more about your strength than you realize. Think about everything you have already endured. Think about the disappointments that could have made you bitter. Think about the betrayals that could have hardened your heart. Think about the setbacks that could have convinced you to stop trying altogether. Yet somehow you are still here, perhaps tired, perhaps healing, perhaps carrying questions that remain unanswered, but still here. That matters. It matters because every season of loss was also revealing something about the person you were becoming. The seasons that tested you were also shaping who you were becoming. The painful endings were teaching lessons that comfortable seasons rarely teach. Loss has a way of exposing what is temporary and what is lasting. It shows you who remains when circumstances change. It shows you what truly matters when distractions disappear. It shows you the depth of your character when life becomes difficult. None of this makes the losses easy. Pain is still pain. Grief is still grief. Missing someone is still painful. Watching a dream disappear still hurts. Faith does not eliminate human emotion. Strength does not remove sadness. Even people with tremendous resilience experience moments of exhaustion. What matters is understanding that your difficult seasons do not define your destiny. Too many people make the mistake of allowing a painful chapter to become the entire story. They assume that because life has been difficult, it will always be difficult. They assume that because they experienced rejection, they are destined to remain rejected. They assume that because they lost something important, they will never experience joy again. But your story is bigger than your losses. Your future is larger than your disappointments. The chapter you are living right now is not the final chapter. Sometimes people who are deeply compassionate experience repeated loss because they continue giving their hearts even after being hurt. They continue believing in people. They continue extending kindness. They continue choosing grace. That kind of heart often carries scars that nobody sees. Your kindness cost you more than most people will ever understand. There were times when you gave your best effort and received very little appreciation in return. There were times when your loyalty was not matched. There were times when your sacrifices went unnoticed. Yet every act of kindness still mattered. Every moment of integrity still mattered. Every choice to remain faithful to your values still mattered. Nothing good that comes from your heart is wasted. One of the most comforting truths is that God sees what others miss. God saw the tears that nobody else noticed. God saw the nights when you felt abandoned. God saw the prayers spoken through disappointment. God saw the effort you continued making even when you were discouraged. There may have been moments when it felt as if nobody understood your struggle, but you were never invisible. You were never forgotten. Even during the seasons when nothing seemed to be changing, important things were happening within you. Patience was growing, wisdom was growing, compassion was growing, strength was growing. The person emerging from these experiences is not the same person who entered them. You have gained depth that cannot be purchased. You have gained perspective that only experience can provide. You have gained resilience that will serve you for years to come. Not every battle you fought was in vain. Some battles taught you how strong you really are. Some battles revealed the people who truly cared about you. Some battles prepared you for responsibilities you have not yet received. Some battles helped you develop a deeper faith than you thought possible. The losses may have taken certain things from your life, but they also placed certain things within you. They placed wisdom where innocence once existed. They placed strength where fear once lived. They placed understanding where confusion once dominated. You are not who you were before these experiences, and that growth matters. It matters because there are blessings that require a stronger version of you. There are opportunities that require greater wisdom. There are future seasons that will benefit from everything you have learned during these difficult years. The losses were real, but so is the growth. The pain was real, but so is the strength that emerged from it. The disappointments were real, but so is the perseverance that carried you through them. Today, instead of focusing only on what left, take a moment to recognize what remained. Your faith remained. Your heart remained. Your ability to care remained. Your courage remained. Your hope, even when it became small, remained. There is something deeply valuable within you that loss could not destroy. There is a quiet strength within you that kept moving forward even on your darkest days. There is a resilience within you that survived every storm that tried to convince you to give up. And there is still a future ahead of you that has not yet been written. The difficult seasons do not have the final word. The painful chapters do not have the final word. The losses do not have the final word. Your story still carries purpose. Your life still carries meaning. Your journey still matters. If this message resonated with your experience and reminded you that your struggles were not meaningless, subscribe to the channel and continue walking this journey with a community that believes in faith, healing, perseverance, and purpose. Sometimes encouragement arrives exactly when it is needed, and the messages ahead may strengthen your heart for the road still before you. There comes a point in the journey when the weight of repeated loss begins to feel heavier than the loss itself. It is not just the ending of one relationship, one opportunity, one dream, or one season. It is the accumulation of all the endings together. It is the memory of every goodbye that was never fully understood. It is the exhaustion of rebuilding again and again. It is the quiet ache of wondering how much more change a heart can endure before it becomes too tired to hope. Many people never talk about this part. They talk about surviving loss, but they rarely talk about surviving a lifetime of losses. They rarely talk about what it feels like when disappointment becomes so familiar that it starts feeling normal. They rarely talk about the moments when a person becomes afraid to get excited because previous excitement was followed by heartbreak. They rarely talk about the loneliness of carrying invisible wounds while appearing strong to everyone around them. Yet this is where many deeply resilient people find themselves. They become experts at enduring. They become skilled at carrying burdens. They learn how to function while hurting. They learn how to keep moving while grieving. The world often praises them for their strength, without realizing how much that strength has cost. If that sounds familiar, then today is a reminder that your strength was never meant to become a prison. You were not created merely to survive. You were not meant to spend your entire life carrying pain without experiencing healing. The fact that you learned how to endure difficult seasons does not mean difficult seasons are all that await you. Sometimes people who have gone through constant loss begin to view themselves through the lens of those losses. Without realizing it, they start believing they are unlucky. They start believing they are destined for disappointment. They start believing that every good thing will eventually disappear. This mindset is understandable because it is born from experience, yet it is also dangerous because it quietly steals hope from the future. Just because something happened repeatedly does not mean it defines what comes next. Just because doors closed before does not mean every door will close. Just because people left before does not mean everyone will leave. Just because previous seasons brought pain does not mean future seasons cannot bring peace. Your past explains your fears, but it does not control your future. One of the greatest acts of courage is allowing yourself to hope again after life has given you many reasons not to. Hope is not weakness. Hope is not denial. Hope is not pretending everything is perfect. Hope is choosing to believe that your story still contains possibilities, even when previous chapters were painful. Hope is choosing to believe that God is still working, even when you cannot see immediate evidence. Hope is choosing to trust that the losses you experienced are not the full measure of your life. Some of the most faithful people in history walked through seasons of uncertainty before they experienced clarity. Some of the strongest people spent years carrying questions before they found answers. The delay did not mean they were forgotten. The struggle did not mean they lacked value. The waiting did not mean their purpose disappeared. In many ways, the difficult seasons prepared them for what came later. This does not mean every loss was sent for a specific reason that can be neatly explained. Life is more complex than that. Some losses happen because people make painful choices. Some losses happen because circumstances change. Some losses happen because we live in an imperfect world. Yet even within those realities, something remarkable can happen. Growth can emerge from pain. Wisdom can emerge from confusion. Compassion can emerge from suffering. Strength can emerge from hardship. You may not have chosen every experience you faced, but you have been shaped by how you responded to those experiences. That is where much of your quiet power comes from. You know what it means to continue when quitting would have been easier. You know what it means to keep loving after being hurt. You know what it means to remain kind after disappointment. You know what it means to trust God during seasons when answers seemed absent. These qualities were not developed during easy times. They were developed during difficult ones. The world often overlooks this kind of growth because it cannot always be measured. It does not always appear in achievements, titles, or recognition. Yet it is some of the most important growth a person can experience. There is a maturity that only comes from surviving what should have broken you. There is a wisdom that only comes from walking through valleys. There is a depth that only comes from carrying pain without allowing it to destroy your character. Some of your greatest victories happened in silence when nobody was watching. Nobody saw every moment you chose faith instead of despair. Nobody saw every time you resisted bitterness. Nobody saw every internal battle you fought. Yet those victories mattered. They shaped who you are. They prepared you for conversations you will one day have. They prepared you to encourage people who are currently walking through struggles similar to your own. One reason your story has value is because your experiences allow you to understand pain in a way many people cannot. You recognize loneliness when you see it. You recognize discouragement when you hear it. You recognize exhaustion behind a smile because you have worn that smile yourself. This understanding is not weakness. It is one of the gifts that can emerge from suffering. It allows you to bring comfort to others. It allows you to offer compassion without judgment. It allows you to become a source of encouragement because you understand what discouragement feels like. Many people who have endured constant loss underestimate how much strength they carry. They focus so much on what they lost that they fail to notice what they gained. They gained resilience. They gained perspective. They gained emotional depth. They gained patience. They gained empathy. They gained wisdom. These qualities may not always feel exciting, but they are valuable beyond measure. They influence every relationship. They influence every challenge. They influence every future opportunity. They become part of the foundation upon which the rest of life is built. There may have been seasons when you questioned your worth because of what left your life. Perhaps you wondered why certain people did not stay. Perhaps you wondered why certain dreams did not unfold. Perhaps you wondered why recognition never arrived despite your effort. Those questions are understandable. Yet your worth was never determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. Your worth existed before their approval. Your worth remained after their departure. Your worth survives every disappointment because it is rooted in something deeper than external validation. You are worth far more than the moments that tried to make you feel small. You are worth more than rejection. You are worth more than failure. You are worth more than criticism. You are worth more than any season that caused you to doubt yourself. God sees your value even when circumstances make it difficult for you to see it. God sees the good that still exists within you. God sees the perseverance that carried you through years of uncertainty. God sees the faith you continued holding on to when life became difficult. God sees the sacrifices nobody applauded. God sees the tears nobody noticed. God sees the strength you underestimate every day. This does not mean life will suddenly become perfect. It does not mean every question will immediately receive an answer. It does not mean every loss will be reversed. What it does mean is that your future remains unwritten. Possibilities still exist. Growth is still happening. Healing is still happening. Purpose is still unfolding. The story is not finished. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that because they cannot see progress, progress is not occurring. Yet some of the most important transformations happen slowly. Healing often happens quietly. Growth often happens gradually. Faith often develops beneath the surface long before visible changes appear. You may be closer to a breakthrough in understanding than you realize. You may be closer to peace than you think. You may be closer to seeing the fruit of your perseverance than your current circumstances suggest. Continue honoring the strength that carried you this far. Continue recognizing the value that remains within you. Continue remembering that difficult times do not define your destiny. Continue believing that your life contains meaning beyond the losses you experienced. There is still beauty ahead. There is still purpose ahead. There is still healing ahead. There is still hope ahead. The fact that you survived every previous season proves that there is something powerful within you. Not a loud power that seeks attention, but a quiet power that refuses to surrender. A quiet power that keeps moving forward. A quiet power that continues believing that better days can exist. A quiet power that reminds you that your story matters. And perhaps one day you will look back at the years that seemed filled with loss and recognize that while much was taken from you, something precious was also being built within you the entire time. If these words helped you feel seen and reminded you that your journey still carries purpose, subscribe to the channel and remain connected to messages that encourage faith, healing, growth, and perseverance. You do not have to walk every difficult season feeling alone, and there is strength in continuing this path alongside others who understand the value of hope. One day you may look back on the years that felt defined by loss and realize that what seemed like a long season of taking was also a long season of becoming. Right now it may be difficult to see. When a person is standing in the middle of grief, they naturally focus on what is missing. When a heart is carrying disappointment, it notices the empty spaces. When dreams have been delayed and relationships have ended and expectations have gone unmet, it is easy to believe that life has been mostly about loss. Yet there is another perspective that often becomes visible only with time. It is the realization that while certain things were leaving your life, something important was being formed within you. Character was being formed. Patience was being formed. Wisdom was being formed. Strength was being formed. The person you are today carries qualities that did not exist years ago. You understand things now that you once could not understand. You see people differently. You appreciate moments differently. You value peace differently. You recognize what truly matters in a way that only experience can teach. This does not erase the pain of what happened. It simply reminds you that pain was not the only thing being created during those years. Growth was happening too. There are many people who spend their lives chasing recognition, status, and approval, only to discover that those things never provide the deep fulfillment they expected. Meanwhile, people who have endured hardship often develop a different understanding of life. They learn that peace matters more than appearances. They learn that genuine relationships matter more than popularity. They learn that integrity matters more than temporary success. They learn that purpose matters more than applause. These lessons are rarely learned in comfortable seasons. They are often learned in the difficult places. They are learned during nights of uncertainty. They are learned during periods of waiting. They are learned during seasons when life forces a person to look deeper than surface-level achievements. Perhaps one reason you feel different from many people around you is because your journey has required a level of reflection that others have never experienced. Pain has a way of forcing people inward. It causes them to ask important questions. It causes them to examine their priorities. It causes them to search for meaning. While that process can be exhausting, it can also produce extraordinary depth. You have likely developed a perspective that many people do not possess. You know how quickly circumstances can change. You know how valuable genuine kindness is. You know how precious peace can be. You know how important faith becomes when certainty disappears. These are not small lessons. They are treasures earned through experience. The world may not always recognize them, but they remain valuable nonetheless. There may have been times when you wondered whether your sacrifices mattered. Perhaps you gave your best to people who eventually left. Perhaps you remained loyal when others were not. Perhaps you invested years into goals that did not unfold the way you expected. In those moments, it is easy to feel as though your efforts were wasted. Yet character is never wasted. Integrity is never wasted. Kindness is never wasted. Faithfulness is never wasted. Even when the immediate outcome is disappointing, those qualities continue shaping your future. They continue shaping who you become. The person who chooses goodness despite hardship develops a strength that cannot be easily taken away. The person who continues showing compassion despite disappointment develops a resilience that circumstances struggle to destroy. The person who remains hopeful despite setbacks develops a courage that grows stronger with time. You have already demonstrated this courage many times, even if you rarely give yourself credit for it. Every morning you chose to keep going was an act of courage. Every day you carried responsibilities while hurting was an act of courage. Every moment you resisted becoming bitter was an act of courage. The fact that you continued moving forward says something important about who you are. It reveals a resilience that many people never fully understand because they have never had to rely on it. There is a strength within you that kept moving forward even on your darkest days. That strength did not appear because life was easy. It appeared because life was difficult and you refused to surrender. Sometimes people underestimate themselves because they become familiar with their own resilience. They stop noticing it. They begin treating extraordinary endurance as something ordinary. Yet if someone else lived through everything you have endured, you would likely admire their strength. You would recognize their perseverance. You would see the courage required to continue. Offer yourself the same recognition. Give yourself permission to acknowledge how far you have come. Too often, people focus exclusively on how much farther they want to go and forget how much they have already survived. You survived seasons that once felt impossible. You survived losses that seemed unbearable. You survived disappointments that shook your confidence. You survived moments when your future felt uncertain. Those experiences matter because they reveal the truth about you. They reveal that you are stronger than many of the fears that once intimidated you. They reveal that you possess a resilience capable of carrying you through future challenges as well. Another truth worth remembering is that healing rarely happens all at once. Many people expect a dramatic transformation. They expect one moment to erase years of hurt. In reality, healing often happens gradually. It happens through small moments of hope. It happens through conversations that restore perspective. It happens through quiet realizations that change how you view yourself. It happens through learning to trust again, little by little. It happens through recognizing that your identity is larger than your wounds. Every step forward matters. Every moment of growth matters. Every act of self-compassion matters. Every decision to believe in a better future matters. You do not have to become a completely different person overnight. You simply need to continue taking small steps toward healing, faith, and hope. God often works in ways that are quieter than people expect. Many individuals imagine that purpose arrives through dramatic moments, but sometimes purpose unfolds through daily faithfulness. Sometimes purpose grows during ordinary days. Sometimes purpose develops through perseverance. Sometimes purpose emerges from lessons learned during hardship. Looking back, you may eventually discover that the seasons you wanted to escape were also preparing you for things you could not yet understand. The waiting strengthened your patience. The disappointment strengthened your resilience. The losses strengthened your appreciation for what truly matters. The loneliness deepened your compassion. The uncertainty strengthened your faith. Again, this does not mean every painful experience was good. Pain is still painful. Loss is still loss. Grief is still grief. But it does mean that difficult experiences do not have unlimited power over your future. They can influence you without defining you. They can shape you without controlling you. They can teach you without becoming your entire identity. Your story has value even if it did not unfold the way you expected. In fact, some of the most meaningful stories are the ones that include struggle, perseverance, and growth. Those stories remind people that setbacks are not endings. They remind people that healing is possible. They remind people that hope can survive difficult seasons. They remind people that faith can remain alive even when circumstances are confusing. Most importantly, they remind people that God has not forgotten them. If you have spent years carrying losses, hear this clearly today. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not invisible. Your life still matters. Your purpose still matters. Your kindness still matters. Your faith still matters. Your perseverance still matters. The chapters that hurt are not the only chapters in your story. There are still pages ahead. There are still experiences ahead. There are still opportunities for joy, peace, growth, connection, and meaning. You do not need to know every detail of the future to believe that the future exists. You do not need all the answers to continue trusting that your life has purpose. You do not need complete certainty to keep moving forward. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is simply taking the next step. The road may not always be easy, but you have already proven that you possess the strength to keep walking. The losses you experienced are real, but they are not the final description of your life. The disappointments are real, but they are not your identity. The difficult seasons are real, but they are not your destiny. What remains is a person who endured more than many people know, loved more deeply than many people understand, and continued moving forward when giving up would have seemed easier. That person deserves hope. That person deserves healing. That person deserves to believe that brighter days are still possible, and that person is you. If this message brought comfort to your heart and reminded you that your journey still carries meaning, subscribe to the channel so you can continue receiving encouragement rooted in faith, resilience, healing, and purpose. May these messages help you remember that you belong, that your story matters, and that your strongest chapters may still be ahead.